Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down a really powerful piece of Indian law that's meant to act as a shield for every single workplace. It's called the POSH Act, and it's designed to protect literally everyone, from an intern all the way up to the CEO. So let's see how it actually works. So let's start with a big question. What law actually protects you and everyone you work with from sexual harassment? Well, the answer might just be broader and way more powerful than you'd expect. And there it is, the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act. But pretty much everyone just calls it the POSH Act of 2013. The best way to think about it isn't just as a rule book, but as this comprehensive shield designed to protect the entire professional world in India. And when I say this shield's coverage is wide, I mean incredibly wide. It applies to every single type of workplace. We're talking public, private, organized, even unorganized sectors. And crucially, in today's world, that also includes digital and remote work environments. And get this, the protection isn't just for full-time staff. It extends to everyone in that space. Interns, trainees, clients, customers, even someone just visiting for a meeting. The whole point is for it to be truly universal. Now, you might think a law this powerful just appeared one day, but nope, the POSH Act was actually forged over decades of legal challenges and evolution. It was a very deliberate journey toward creating a framework that's all about prevention, not just punishment after the fact. You can really see that journey laid out here. Before 1997, things were, well, pretty vague. Cases were handled under broad penal codes. The real game changer was in 1997, with the Supreme Court's landmark Vishaka Guidelines. That was the first time the duty to prevent harassment was placed squarely on employers. Then, in 2013, the POSH Act took those guidelines and gave them the full force of law. And it's still evolving. It's now being integrated into new labor codes, which just goes to show how vital it remains today. Okay, so that's the backstory. But how does the shield actually work in practice? Day to day. What are the nuts and bolts that make it all happen? First things first, the law gets really specific about what sexual harassment actually means. It's defined as any unwelcomed act of a sexual nature. That can be anything from physical contact to sexually colored remarks. But the most important word there is unwelcome. The core principle is this. It's all about the impact on the person experiencing it, not the intent of the person doing it. If the conduct is unwelcome, it falls under the act. Simple as that. So the real engine of the POSH Act is prevention, and that responsibility falls right on the employer's shoulders through 4 key duties. First, every company has to form an internal committee, or IC. Think of it as an impartial body to handle complaints. Second, they have to create and display a clear policy so everyone knows their rights. Third, they need to do regular training to proactively build awareness. And finally, they have to submit annual reports, which creates real accountability. These pillars aren't just suggestions. They're the foundation for building a safer culture. Okay, but what happens if a complaint is filed? Well, the law lays out a very clear, time-bound process. A survivor files a written complaint with the IC, which then begins a formal inquiry. And this isn't just an informal chat. The IC has powers similar to a civil court, so it can gather evidence and call witnesses. And here's the kicker. The entire process, from start to finish, must be completed within a strict 90-day timeline. No dragging things out. And to make sure employers don't just shrug this off, the Act has some serious teeth. Failure to comply can lead to a fine of up to 50,000 rupees. And if it happens again, the penalties can get even higher and could even lead to the company's business license being canceled. That's a pretty big incentive to take this seriously. All right, so we've got this strong law on the books, which is great. But how is it actually playing out in the real world? Well, as you can probably guess, the picture is complex. There are some persistent challenges, but also some really encouraging signs of progress. Yeah, so the reality on the ground is a real mix. On the one hand, fear and social stigma still cause a lot of underreporting. That's a huge challenge. But on the other hand, there are some great trends. The fact that reported cases are rising actually suggests there's growing awareness and maybe more trust in the system. And you're seeing proactive companies go beyond the basics. They're doing audits, bringing in experts for training, and even setting up anonymous ways to report issues. And all of this, the rules, the committees, the challenges, it brings us to the real heart of the matter. What is the ultimate purpose of this entire legal framework? Because it's definitely not just about avoiding fines or ticking boxes on a checklist. The real goal is so much bigger. The true aim here is to transform a legal requirement into a lived cultural norm. The whole idea is to move beyond mere compliance and to fundamentally reshape the actual culture of our workplaces. This quote from the source material just sums it up perfectly. The POSH Act is really meant to be an instrument of transformation. Its ambition is to foster a huge cultural shift, to create workplaces where respect, dignity, and equality aren't just words in a policy, but are the very foundation of how everyone interacts every single day.
And that really leaves us with a final thought. Beyond the law, beyond all the committees and processes, what does a truly safe and respectful workplace actually look and feel like to you? Thanks for watching The Explainer.